don't have
But
time for post-liberalism, right?
no,
We could
no,
do
no, of
that,
course
but
not.
that seems
No,
like not
no, we
enough in
don't. I
15
haven't.
minutes.
Yeah, but look, the question is, why has the Compact article gone viral when people?
Okay. But
Yeah,
like, what
no,
do
I
Yeah,
we
no,
get
need
we
a
it.
don't.
fourth topic? Or do we need a fourth topic? We might run out of I mean, three topics may be enough.
Okay, are we back? Yeah, hold on. Where am I? I'm there. Okay, I just started
Oh.
the live stream. I didn't
Okay.
announce the live stream, so we may only have like 2 people who get notices for it. By the way, I was talking to John Hinderocker. I'll say more about this later, maybe. And I've learned that the Center for the American Experiment that he does, they've turned their podcast over to his daughter, who's Catherine, who's very smart and very pretty, and they have a studio that's well lit, and they're getting huge traffic for their podcast. But what drives that is not the podcast itself; it's the TikToks and Instagram clips that they post, and that drives traffic to the whole thing. So, unfortunately, we probably have to do that if we want to grow our audience. And I don't want to do
Well,
TikToks. And as
No, I
long as
mean, we can
Never been on
go
TikTok.
over, we could go over to Civitas and they'll have a staff to do that for us.
well, that's a thought. I noticed they started promoting us this week, so it makes me.
Oh, they did? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
yeah.
so they brought this new guy on who
Oh, I want to talk
is
to him.
supposed to, this guy Nick Lindquist, who's supposed to, establish more of an orderly platform for all the podcasts. I was just
Okay.
there on Monday and Tuesday, so I was
Right.
hearing more about this.
Okay.
So allegedly they say starting January they're gonna make a big deal of podcasts, so we should think about whether we want to.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, no, I'm okay. I want to meet that guy and talk to him. So, because I don't have
Okay.
time to do these things, unfortunately. I'd love to, but I don't have time for it. So, by the way, just I am. Lucretia did, since we may have a viewer or two. Did you see John Hinderocker's Weekend Pictures last Saturday? He called me out specifically to say that Die Hard is not a Christmas movie.
I know. I
What?
saw it. Wait
Well,
a minute. Let me go
it's
get.
during
Hold that
Christmas,
thought.
isn't
We're
it?
live, but I'm going to do this anyway. Hold that thought.
But anyway, so we'll just
Yeah,
we'll
just do what you want,
see.
John. We'll just go. But
Okay.
let's wait till she gets back and then count us down and
Okay.
go. And then ah
I'm back. I'm back.
okay. You're gonna Die Hard
With
thing? Oh,
I'm back
yes,
with my
right.
Die Hard advent calendar.
That's right.
What? There's such a
Remember-
thing?
Yeah. Let me see if I get a little closer, John, if you can see it.
Oh,
It's,
is that the
Hans
was it
Gruber
Nakatomi Tower?
and Nakatomi.
Yeah.
Yes, and you see there's explosion
Oh,
at the
now-
top
yeah.
and
Uh-huh.
helicopter. And this is Hans Gruber, and we are on the 18th of
Yeah.
December with 7 days to go till 6 days to go till the end of Advent. So
Why does this
is
not
the-
surprise me?
Anyway,
That you have this.
the news for you and our 2 viewers maybe is that I have staged a coup and I'm taking over Weekend Pictures this weekend.
are
from
you
John? Yes.
on
So
back on
For,
Powerline?
forever?
yes.
Forever?
No, not forever. We're going to alternate. Is what it looks like. But
Oh,
my closing line. I've already written the introduction. My closing line is, to paraphrase John McClane when he appears on Basic Cable, "Yippee ki melon farmer."
melon farmer.
Oh,
That's how they do it on Basic Cable when they run the movie.
Melon
they?
farmer.
You
I've
haven't
never.
heard this,
I've
John?
never
No,
seen
you
it on
haven't.
Basic Cable.
Oh well, that's how you get.
You've never
Samuel-
seen Die Hard, John?
No, I've seen it. I don't remember. I was just like, that's
Oh.
what they use as melon farmer.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes, it is. Well, for Samuel
Okay.
L. Jackson. Yeah. Okay, go ahead. Enough of
Ready?
my silliness. Yeah.
So, 3, 2, 1. Welcome everybody to a holiday episode of the 3 Whiskey Happy Hour. We're counting down the days to Christmas, although we will have a special Christmas episode for everyone. But before we do, this is going to be one of the last episodes of 3 Whiskey Happy Hour for 2025. And we are joined by our holiday-themed co-hosts. We have the International Woman of Mystery, Lucretia, who has an advent calendar that involves skyscrapers, explosions, and many guns. What is that, Lucretia? What do you have there?
It is the Die Hard Christmas official Christmas Die Hard advent calendar. It's Nakatomi Tower, explosion, helicopter, and Hans Gruber is almost splat at the bottom because it is the 18th of December.
And
Yeah,
what are you
it's
drinking to go along with the advent calendar? What is
So
the
you guys,
die-hard appropriate liquor of choice?
you're gonna laugh. You're gonna laugh really hard. Not only am I not drinking liquor, I am drinking Mexican water that I paid for.
Mexican water? Oh,
Mexicans,
Topo
yeah,
Chico.
yeah.
Oh,
But
wow.
yeah, I think don't you think it's kind of funny to pay actual money for Mexican water in a bottle?
It's so funny I never do it.
Oh, there you go.
Steve,
I actually really like Topo
Steve,
Chico, so.
what are you drinking and what's
uh,
your concession to the holiday spirit?
yeah. So this is really bad of me. I've been traveling all week and I'm still a little dehydrated. So I just finished a gin and tonic because I need the tonic, So I know that's bad, but anyway.
Sorry.
And do you have any, yeah, that's so lame. Do you have any
I know.
Christmas themed activities or clothing or anything that rivals Lucretia's,
No, I
I
mean
mean,
she's
all-time
she's
die-hard advent calendar? That's
well, there's
incredible.
that, and she's also for the few viewers, so that people can watch this if they want later, because I'll post the video. She's all tricked out and tricked out, dressed up in splashy Christmas-looking clothing. No, I did acquire my roast beast for Christmas Day. A giant rib roast that I'm gonna figure out how to cook.
Oh,
So
I don't know. I would have thought, Steve, you were more of a goose man, given your,
no,
resemblance to Ebenezer Scrooge. No?
No, but I
no.
will tell you, if you ever roast a duck on your grill and you got
Oh,
your drippings pan, put potatoes in the
oh
drippings
yeah,
pan.
it's
Oh
great.
Mm,
my.
That's a
Oh,
mm.
great idea. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
because you guys were fighting earlier today, I feel
Uh-oh.
like
He's
I
gonna
need.
what?
John, we have known
Yeah,
each other for so
this
long.
is
Do you think a little tiff like
this
that is
is.
going to break a friendship?
I was like, they're
Is
getting
it, Steve?
divorced or something. It was like I was the child of divorce again here. You guys, I'm so glad the listeners never read your texts to each other. So because you guys were so mean to each other, I'm going to break out the Willet for tonight
Oh,
in the giant bottle here.
Now you're
So
making me want to go get some
yeah,
whiskey. I
I
was
know. I
swearing
always
off
pour it
of it
out so
because I have
that
to be up
listen.
at 4 in the morning, your guys'
ooh,
time.
ooh, ooh.
So, but maybe I'll
Wow,
go
it's
get
really
some.
good, this Willet.
Damn you, John.
Yeah, man.
Well, like I said, your guys bickering and fighting has driven me to drink.
I know. We're
It's
not really
supposed to drive
bickering
you
and
guys to
fighting.
drink.
We're talking past each other as usual.
Yeah, that's right. That yes.
Okay.
If we could
I feel much more
if we did
relieved.
this not on text, we could actually probably come to an understanding. But
Yeah.
Well,
this has
okay.
happened for years, John.
Oh, good God, how can you take it for that long? Anyway, so the first topic I think we're going to discuss is the shooting at Brown. As we are taping the show, there's breaking news that the police have finally found the shooter. There were all kinds of conspiracy theories circling around this because the Providence police at first caught somebody, then they released this person of interest, said they were cleared. That's been, let's see, the shooting was on Saturday. So up until today, there didn't seem to be any progress made. There was talk that it might be related to the shooting of an MIT professor also in the
Yeah.
last week. I'm not sure whether that's true. Now that it turns out that the Brown shooter, according to reports we're just getting, has died at a storage facility in Salem, New Hampshire, which was surrounded by armed police. And we'll get more details. But despite the details, what do you all make of the Brown shooting? I mean, this has followed a number of shootings that have been taking place on college campuses. Remember, Charlie Kirk was assassinated on a college campus as well. Um, does this mean we need to harden and weapon up on campuses? Is there something we can do about this? Is there a political angle to any of this? Is it the case that it's um, left wing nuts who are taking advantage of the openness of college campuses to shoot at people? Lucretia, your
Well,
take.
let me just say that my whole university has been completely dismantled and riled, and we have now a horrible administration. Hope they're listening because of a shooting that took place.
Oh,
A Muslim graduate student who was unhappy about I don't know what. with an engineering professor, walked into the classroom and shot him dead. And he had been on, like all these other things, on the radar for some time, but the police, they didn't do anything about it. And so everybody from the president, the provost on down, ultimately, the police chief, all of those people just fell like dominoes because of that shooting. Gosh, it's probably been 3 years now. But I don't know. I mean, campus, if you want to be a shooter, campus is a great place to do it because, as you probably know, John, the only person who's ever armed on campus and then only in her car is me.
Oh my God. The arsenal that she drives around with in that Tesla.
Yeah.
Oh, I felt bad for any police officer who was going to pull her over for speeding, that's for sure.
Before
That
I
was my
concede to Steve the time, I do have a serious comment about what you said, and I do think that insofar as some of these college, university-based shootings are actually, confined to universities, it's because universities are the hotbeds of what I would consider probably the two most controversial issues in American politics today, and that would be the whole transgender debate, and then, of course, the Gaza, Israel, Zionist debate. I mean, on campuses, you guys are on campuses too, both of you. Do you see anything more? What shall we say, more salient on university campuses? And every shooting that I can think of has its relationship to one or the other. But, I'm not probably thinking of
Steve,
everything.
before Steve responds and answers, another detail just came in. The name of the shooter was Claudio Manuel Neves Valente, 48-year-old former Brown graduate student and Portuguese national. Last residence was on Miami, found with two firearms on him. Steve, what do you think?
Well, okay, so this is real information that maybe changes things a little. Three or four things. First, most people don't pay any attention to Rhode Island because why would you? It's the size of a postage stamp, but it's an incredibly corrupt state. And if you watched any of the press conferences of the law enforcement, you saw a total clown show. What if the Babylon Bee said Chief Wiggum's put in charge of the investigation? The bumbling police chief from
Sorry,
the
Steve,
Simpsons?
they didn't interview a
What?
single student who was
No,
there.
I'm coming to all that. I mean, the list of particulars on, they picked up a lot of cats and dogs who've been fired from other jobs for incompetence. And so it's a very corrupt state for the public employee union, such that Gina Raimondo, when she was governor, was a reformer. She was later became, Biden's Secretary of Commerce. And then at Brown, so big question marks here. There are reports that apparently have some credibility. I'm not sure about confirmation yet that Brown removed lots of security cameras after pressure from people who said, well, we don't want to help ICE or we don't want to help the police identify Gaza protesters, and that the administration gave into that. That's not confirmed yet, but you're hearing that charged. And when some reporters, good for them, asked about this at one of the press conferences, got a very heated response that was a non-response from officials, right? The third thing is the university did something very strange. They have a guy who's a student. He's LGBTQ plus XYZ Omega, whatever, all the letters, who's a pro-Palestinian activist, pretty radical, and they scrubbed his information from the university's website. By the way, he looks a lot like the physique of the person you saw in the videos that were put out. So a lot of people online said, hey, I wonder if this is the guy. Now, maybe it's not. It sounds like it's not from the information that you've just relayed to us, John. But, and the university is saying, oh, we don't want people to be doxxed. We were concerned for the students' safety. All you did by scrubbing him from the website was call more attention to this person. That was, again, maybe this is stupidity. The old Mike Ullman rule, never chalk up to malice what could be explained by stupidity. But boy, it certainly raises suspicions that they're covering for someone that they may have admitted who's a crazy person who might have been. So maybe not, maybe it's not him, but still, that was a dumb move by the university. Then finally, last point, the fact that they are investigating, and by the way, it was said in the Wall Street Journal this evening, which means now mainstream press, that they're investigating a connection between this shooting and the one of the Jewish MIT professor who's doing work on fusion energy. They might be connected. That starts to look that this is not a typical campus shooting or any other kind of mass shooting incident. That this was targeted, deliberate, planned out. The classroom at Brown was on what, the fourth floor of the building or something? This was not a, I want to go shoot some people because I'm mad or crazy or angry. They wanted to go to that classroom, which had a Jewish professor, and one of the persons killed was one of the leaders, apparently very well known and controversial on the campus, of the college Republicans. So, I mean, we'll see if we can learn more about this, but all these things make us look different and very suspicious.
What do you think about Lucretia's point, Steve, that the reason these are taking place on college campuses is because we've seen heightened level of violence on campus because of the reaction to the Gaza war, which has been far to the left on campus, I think, than in the rest of the country. And then also the ideology, she said LGBTQ, or you could say woke, or you could say a variety of things, but the, extreme, I would say Marxist ideology that has infected our campuses. Do you think that this makes universities a fertile ground for political violence of this kind?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I do think there may be an aspect of the, what do we say, social contagion taking place. Let's remember, mass shootings 30 years ago. What's the phrase we used to use? Somebody going postal.
Yeah.
That's because you had
youngsters are like, postal. What's that?
Is that well?
Because it was a thing, Steve.
Right. Well, there wasn't that many, but it doesn't take that many. You had three or four. It was only three or four. It was a very minor number, but because they were so unusual and spectacular, you had three or four disgruntled, fired postal workers went into their postal offices. Usually, it was what they call the MMPCs, the mail processing centers. And shot up 20 people. And so it was postal workers. So the phrase going postal caught on. And that died out. But why did it happen more than once? Well, because you had copycats, right? The copycat phenomenon is real. I'm not an expert on the social science of this. But I do think that once you start, people say, oh, I can shoot Charlie Kirk on a college campus. I think these things vary. I mean, you had an Asian student, was it at VMI or Virginia Tech?
Yes, there was a Korean kid.
Right.
There was a Korean kid.
A troubled, I don't know what that's about. That wasn't ideological, and I don't think.
No, he was nuts, is what he was.
Yeah, but the fact that you start seeing it at college campuses, oh, Brown University is a gun-free zone. How could this happen there? Right? I do think that people see it as market opportunity, and for whatever reason, I don't discount Lucretia's reason, but for whatever reason, I think we should fear more of this.
Lucretia, what would you do to, let's look going forward, what would you do to stop this? Other than give out more advent calendars with about a movie about a guy, a police officer who shoots up a tower in Los Angeles. What would you do if we do expect to see more of this? And of course, the three of us are college professors. I mean, we know that the parents of these families entrust these children to our care, and our universities failing in the job of maintaining basic security on campuses. What would you do to stem this tide of violence?
So remember when you were coming to your wonderful visit to my campus, and I met a couple of times with the campus police department, and especially with their OSINT people, their open source intelligence people, who actually explained to me, and then we talked about how we might work together with our own academic program that does that. That was part of the reason why I got a deeper dive into it. But I think you would be surprised how much they actually do look into at least the more obvious ways in which disgruntled students, former students who might put anything out there on the internet, on Reddit, on TikTok, on those sorts of things, and are prepared for them. Now, those things are much more likely to be, something like a famous law professor from Berkeley comes and gives a public talk, and so they're ready for it, and they're watching, and they know who's been writing about it on social media, posting about it. But they also sometimes can see evidence of, but they're never going to pick up these loners that are just out there stewing and there's not much they can do. And everybody on a campus in many ways, I think, is a sitting duck because no campus that I know of allows firearms of any kind on it, as far as I know. You guys can tell
Texas,
me if I'm
University of
wrong.
Texas at Austin does.
Do they really?
Well,
You
but
wish.
no,
Yes, but that's because
there-
state law requires it. They're not allowed
There-
to stop the operation of state
there's
law.
been a big push on many campuses to have the campus police force not have weapons.
Mine doesn't.
Really? Oh God.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, so you remember that I'm on a little, really quickly, I'm on a little branch campus of the university, and we are next door to a community college, very close to, within, 100 yards. And we contract out from them our security. Their security guards, if our security guard calls them and they have to come over because something's happening, they have to go put their guns in the locked locker, whatever it's called, before they can come onto our campus. That's the policy.
Mm.
That's how serious they take the idea that you're not allowed to have a gun on campus. Stupid.
I mean, it might be a test of that theory whether more guns means less crime. If these people might be attacking, just like I think they attack K through 12 schools because they know they're
Yeah.
soft targets.
Right.
Yeah,
And
Right.
if they
very
thought
soft
there might be
targets.
people around with guns who, I don't know whether it would interfere with the culture of openness and learning on that we're supposed to try to foster on college campuses. If right, we have more armed guards, but I'd rather not be shot either. Steve.
Look, I mean, well, not to belabor this point, but I go back to the nostalgia of pictures of high schools that had shooting classes. And you can find pictures of people who drove to their high school campuses in their pickup trucks with their shotguns on the rack in the back. That was America, 60, 70 years ago. And okay, I'll just stop there. You get the point.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
And we
let's
had
move
fewer
on.
shootings in those days, right?
You had none. Right.
Yeah. Well, we'll get more developments, and I'm sure by the time of our next episode next week during Christmas, we'll have more to discuss as we learn more about the case. Let's turn to our second topic, which is Lucretia was right. Donald Trump can be president for a third term. Who knew? According to a op-ed written by Alan Dershowitz, and apparently personally discussed by Dershowitz. Apparently, Dershowitz has some book that he has mentioned to Trump at the White House Hanukkah party that argues that Trump could become president for a third term. Although, hasn't he already been elected 3 times by his count? Anyway, he could.
You are bad.
Apparently, Miriam Adelson, the wife of Sheldon Adelson, was told about this, and during the Hanukkah Christmas party said this would be a great idea, that we should do it. And Trump apparently said something like, "You're going to give another $250 million for that," which apparently was evoked laughs. But let me, if I think I can test this out on you, lay out Dershowitz's theory. So if you look at the 22nd Amendment, which was, of course, added to the Constitution after FDR broke the 2-term tradition, it says no person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice. And so what he says, I assume, is that what if Trump became president in some of the ways you can become president without being elected? Suppose, for example, you are the president, you're the vice president, and the person running as president wins and then steps down. Does a vice president who becomes president, was he actually elected to the presidency? So that's case number 1. Case number 2 could be, suppose, this is a little more complicated, the Electoral College doesn't come to a majority, and the case gets thrown into the House, where each state votes by delegation. If the House picks you, have you been elected to the presidency? Maybe you haven't been. Maybe you've been chosen or selected by the House. And there's some talk, the Republicans could run a slate and then tell their delegates to just not vote. That would deprive the winner of a majority and then would get thrown into the House. The third possibility, which actually seems the most realistic of all these very low probability events, is suppose the president and the vice president win and then they resign. That means under the law of secession, the Speaker of the House becomes the president. And the Speaker of the House is not required under the Constitution to be a member of Congress. So the House could essentially pick anyone in the country to be the Speaker of the House, and that person would become president. They would never have been elected to be president. They would just be president through the secession law. So I assume Dershowitz is arguing that any of these or all of these possibilities are ways that President Trump could be president for a third term. Lucretia, what do you think? What do you think about this? Would you want Trump to be president for a third term? If he were, would you want him to resort to these, tricks, or maybe this is a legitimate way to interpret the 22nd Amendment? What do you think?
I mean, I think that the only really interesting thing I took from Dershowitz's article, and I'm not really trying to diss him in any way, but I didn't think it was very compelling. What you just said was a lot more compelling than what Dershowitz had to say, but he came up with this wild sort of scenario that it would take in order for, say, the president to have been appointed Secretary of State, and it was after what was it?
That was a stupid
Clancy,
way to do it. The other three I just laid out are much more simple.
Style Armageddon event where practically all of Washington D.C. is blown up, but not. Anyway, I hope if I was Trump, I would entertain the idea of a third term, only to alleviate some of his lame duckness, if that makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that otherwise. God, I hope that's why he's doing it. And that makes a lot of sense to me. I think waiting a little bit longer and then starting to, I can't use the word that we used to use for this, it's starting to work on getting his vice president or perhaps his Secretary of State as a viable candidate. All of those things make sense to me, but he's not going to do that yet. It's too early. No, I don't want Trump for another term, and I don't know that I want anybody. However, I think the 22nd Amendment was a stupid idea in the first place. It really was. I mean, it goes against the founders' intentions for indefinite re-electability for a lot of reasons. And one of them is that we discuss lame duckness, right? You are a lame duck in your second term, no matter what. Yes. Do you remember when Obama was president, they started floating some of these ideas that Clinton could make him her vice president, or Clinton could make him that, something. And when she won, which we were all certain she was going to, of course, that way Clinton could become, and then he'd let her stay for a while, and then he would kick her out and become president again. That was a big, anyway, I don't know, Steve. I don't know what to say.
Look, I am.
Yeah, Steve, what do you think?
I am.
Let's say two questions. One, is it possible that someone could be president 3 terms, and then even if it is this a good idea with Trump?
Well, let me go in reverse order. I am for Trump having a third term, if only to maximize the pain of the left in this country and the media, right? That alone is worth. I don't care.
The first 2 terms weren't enough for you, Steve. You want to triple down?
No, I want more. It's as someone said to me when Clinton was president. Ronald Reagan with Alzheimer's is better than this guy, and that's what I feel about Trump. Right? He's just okay. Now, having said that, I think there's several things going on here. I think this is Dershowitz wanting to stay in the limelight like Dershowitz does, and okay.
In stories today because of his picture with in some more Epstein releases. Maybe he just wanted to distract.
I don't know. I mean, he's been even aggressive on that stuff too. The other thing is, I can't see this working in practice. I mean, game this out a little bit. So, I mean, suppose there's sort of one that was left out, which was the vice president resigns, who wins the election, and then you appoint Trump to be vice president, and that's confirmed by Congress. And then the president steps down and then becomes president. He's not elected, but that's another way. It seems maybe it's in the book that will come out, right? That seems equally plausible to me, better than the Speaker of the House. I gather that the Speaker doesn't have to be a member of the House as a contested question. No, okay, let's leave that aside.
The Constitution just doesn't address it at all.
Okay, I've heard arguments that it has to be. Never mind. Let's leave that for some other day. my point is, how does this work out in the 2020 election campaign? Is Trump out campaigning? Are you having three candidates? And how plausible is it that the Republican nominee, say it's J.D. Vance, he's out campaigning, vote for me, but everyone knows that he's going to step aside in favor of Trump? I just don't see how that works very well with voters. I think a lot of people would say, even a lot of people who independents inclined to vote for Trump, as they've done for 3 elections, say, no, I don't. That's just too gimmicky, right? I mean, the mechanics may be plausible. I don't think the real world politics of it would work in practice. And I think it would probably backfire. So that's my speculation.
Lucretia?
I have nothing
You're on
more.
off.
I mean, I think that the vice presidency thing was the thing with Obama. I forget, but
Right. Oh, this has been around forever. Yeah. Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'll give Dershowitz a little bit of credit. What he said was it's not going to make any difference for Trump. This kind of catastrophic event that would lead to this isn't going to happen. But we ought to be debating about what was really intended by the 22nd Amendment and whether it's a good idea at all. That was his kind of closing argument to the whole thing. Go ahead, Steve.
Well,
I was just going to say, has the 22nd Amendment been problematic in any way yet? Other than that it was passed?
Yeah, I don't think so. Not quite a trivia question, John, but I wish I'd thought of this earlier and I'd have checked it out. But wasn't John Tyler, who took office when somebody died as president? By the way, his
Harrison.
Tyler's grandson just died last week, which is one of those amazing things, which shows how young the country is. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, amazing. That's amazing.
I know. The guy was president of the 1840s.
I believe Tyler also was alive at the time of the Civil War and went with the Confederacy.
Yeah, could be. Yeah. But my recollection was when Harrison died, they kept referring, there was some question about whether he was president or acting president.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly right. Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, there's, this would, again, the ambiguity of the 22nd Amendment leaves the door open to being an acting president. The 22nd Amendment was in part passed to solve the Tyler problem, I think. But anyway, that's small point, but kind of fun.
That's a really interesting point because when I did my book on the presidency, I came across this, that today we just accept you ascend to the presidency if the president dies and you're just the president. But there was actually a strong effort when Tyler became president to relegate him to acting president and never have the full power of the office.
Right.
And this is considered Tyler's major contribution to the presidency. He said, nope, I am the president and I am going to exercise all the powers that,
well, you guys will remember,
Harrison
sorry to bring this up, but it's kind of funny. The controversy in California with Steve, remind me his name. Mike Curb, who when Jerry Brown would leave the state, right?
Right.
Because he was independently elected, et cetera, he would not only take over the powers of the governor, but would have all the powers of the governor, including signing or vetoing legislation and things
appointing
like
judges. I mean, it was great.
Right.
It was fabulous. Suddenly Jerry Brown couldn't travel. It was hysterically funny. Right.
Okay, I'm done. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. So the third topic we have on deck is, now Steve is making us talk about this because Steve cares so deeply about the feelings of young generation, whatever's X, Y, Z leftists who feel so put upon by having to live under the policies they promote on society. This is an article by a fellow named Savage, who appears to be a screenwriter of some kind in Hollywood. I'd never heard of him, but then I never know the name. I wouldn't know the names of any screenwriters. I mean, but anyway, so he's written this article, which complains about the effects of DEI policies on white males in 3 industries, right? In journalism, Hollywood, and the Academy. And the statistics are very striking. But Steve says that this article has gone viral, even more viral than the Helen Andrews article about the feminization of society that we discussed a few weeks ago.
Which also appeared in Compact. Anyway.
Yes, they're both in this journal. Steve, I mean, I've read the article. Have I fairly described it? And why are you so enraptured by the suffering of white male liberals who have to live on the policies and the theories that they forced on the
Yeah.
rest of us? I'm like, wah, wah, wah. Oh, I feel so bad for these people who probably voted for I'm sure they all voted
Mhm.
for Obama and
Yep.
they voted for these policies and they just don't like the use of race when it's done to them, but they love the use of race when it's done to other people, I guess. So, Steve, why
Yeah.
are you so enraptured by this complaining
Well,
generation, X or millennial
Well,
crybaby?
so first of all, hats off to Compact is a fairly new online journal that's very nicely laid out. They publish a lot of great people across the spectrum, mostly center right, though, I think. And they've now had the second sort of viral article in a few months. Helen Andrews, we talked about, and now this article is going viral. That's the question. Why has this article caught fire in
Yeah.
the space of a week? Because it's not a new argument. The statistics are
No.
not entirely new. And in fact, if you look at social media comment, you see a lot of, I'll call them old timers who are saying, hey, wait a minute. Like my friend Fred Lynch at Claremont McKenna, he's been writing about this since 1990, and he's raising his hand saying, hey, wait a minute. And you can go back earlier than that. You could go to the Counting by Race book by William Bennett and Terry Eastland in the mid 80s. So, our team's been complaining about where this was going for a very long time. I'm not sure, by the way, this guy's necessarily a leftist. You just say Hollywood screenwriter and you assume that's true. But the point is I think the statistics are not limited to just let me stop that. Let me set this up by saying people on the left are taking notice of this article. It's not just, conservative fanboys. I just did a brief survey. Some of the lefty blogs are talking about it. Some of the lefty podcasts, the smarter ones, which is relative term, are talking about it and taking it seriously. And they're trying to poo-poo it by saying, well, this is limited to Hollywood and universities and the media, except it's not. So I will mention, I actually wrote about this 5-6 years ago. Here's a headline from July 2020. So it's 2-3 months after George Floyd. Headline: Chevron diversity ratio to improve as layoffs progress. Let that sink in. This is Chevron, and they're saying, oh, we're doing cutbacks like they do from time to time of their management ranks because they have too many. And they said, we want to up the share of senior level jobs held by women and ethnic minorities to up to 45% from 35% in the last couple of years. So we're going to make senior executives reapply for their job. If you think about what they're saying is they were going to target white male managers for layoffs more so than anyone else. They confessed to the country publicly they were going to violate the Civil Rights Act. The New York Times did a story just a couple years ago. I wonder if I can find it. I'm not sure I can. Here it is. Washington Post. This is from, I don't have the date, but it's in the last couple of years. Corporate America pledged to hire more people of color. It actually did. And the change in employment from February 2020 to, I think this is 2024, all the minorities went up substantially, 4 million in total of underrepresented minorities. Whites in corporate executive positions went down by 900,000. This wasn't just the creative classes and the places that liberals take over. It spilled over in the boardroom. Now, the corporations have been retreating for quite a while now from DEI. They shrunk all that, and that's an interesting story, but I'll skip over all that. I think the reason this has caught on is because, let me put it this way, I think for all those years from the 80s on, we had I'll call it an unstable equilibrium, but at least an equilibrium, which was we knew there were things wrong with this. The Supreme Court would get cases like Adirond and Ward's Cove and all the others, Grutter, and they temporized and they made compromises. And it got worse and worse, and then it accelerated under Obama. That's an interesting story that needs to be played out at longer length, I think. And then I think things went crazy, really before George Floyd, but it started going crazy around 2018 or so, plus or minus a year or two. And it got so out of hand that now it's at crisis proportions. And as you say, John, it did start affecting articulate younger liberals. This is not the first guy. I mean, one person I know is a liberal is this guy. I don't know him at all, but is on Twitter. I think it's David Austin Walsh. He's a very left-wing person, went to graduate school, published, did all the right things, can't get a job, and said, he got older, he get crap for this. He said on Twitter, I can't get a job anywhere in academia, and I think it's because I'm a white male. And boy, did the left go after him for that. But he was a lefty saying that. So I think things got so out of hand, like they did. Sorry, I'm going on long, and here's the last point. It's like the immigration question. You had National Review as early as 1990, 92, saying immigration's a problem. The national question's a problem. We need to think about this. And everyone said, oh, you're a bunch of racists. And then Joe Biden comes along and blows the lid off, and suddenly public opinion flips. So for all these years, you've had people like Fred Lynch saying this is terrible, it's unprincipled, it's wrong, it's unconstitutional. And most people shrug their shoulders. And now this article hits, it's timing. Like Helen Andrews' article. Her article is not brand new. Her argument was not brand new either, but it caught the moment, and it signals to me that on this and on many things I could go on, there's a vibe shift going on. That's the phrase of 2025, right? Is vibe shift. This is another sign that the vibe shift is shifting, and I'm done. Sorry for the long speech.
Yeah, whatever.
So
I'm like, there's so like, you said like 100 things in there, Steve.
that's okay. I'm going to simplify it. Actually, don't.
Yeah.
I don't. You called it a vibe shift. I'm going to use an even more cringe term, but I think it actually is appropriate here. And I think that the Overton window has shifted.
Mhm.
And it's not, as Steve said, because he's right in many ways that, the things just hit a crisis point and, over the top and everything else. This is the example I'm going to give, and then I'll tell you what I mean. 2 years ago, the Arizona legislature had already started pushing back on things like hiring for, what do they call them, diversity statements in hiring and all of that kind of stuff. They started pushing back on it from the Arizona legislature level. So what would happen is I would be in these meetings with provosts and vice provosts and deans and so forth, and they would be talking about how they could continue to do this and get away with it and hide it behind, university net ID walls and things like that. It was never even it wouldn't have mattered what I said because I tried. I lived in a different universe entirely from these people because, I would argue that this was wrong and so on. It's not that way anymore. It's not that way because what's happened with first of all, with the Supreme Court's changing, Harvard case and so on, and Trump. I mean, the idea that Trump made DEI illegal, essentially, actually has changed the way people view it. The people who always saw that it was unjust and racist of a different kind now speak about it openly in a way that they couldn't do so before. And so these two articles come along, and they're kind of the usual, kind of, as John puts it, a little bit whiny millennials, but they're speaking for a generation that that really did get kind of screwed over. John's probably right. They probably mostly voted for it, but
they deserve it. They deserve it. That's my point.
In many cases. But the other thing is that what we're seeing with the stupid Nick Fuentes and Grapers and so on is the resentment that is the result of all of those years of being told, your only reason for existing, John Rawls style, is to make sure that your gifts are used in the service of the marginalized and less fortunate than you. And that fell very hard on white men. And that's why young white men are turning more and more to these awful right-wing sorts of viewpoints and perspectives. So I don't disagree with anything Steve said. I just think it's a little bit more than just reaching a crisis point or, a critical mass. I think it's what Trump was able to do to convince people that DEI is a bad thing. I mean, even Harvard didn't. It was after the Harvard case too that we were told we had to stop doing things, stop admitting students on the basis of their race, and they just figured out ways to do it and just not get caught. Now I think they're still doing that, but they're not going to say it openly in a meeting.
Well, that's a legal question for you, John, except I want to defer full consideration to another time. But The exit question here is there now suddenly, you talk about the Overton window moving, Lucretia, is there now suddenly a gaping potential legal liability? You know, the government can do, Justice Department, EEOC actually has said they're interested in this, I think, this week. Standards and practices investigations where you investigate deliberate discrimination against white males and therefore big liability settlements from universities and corporations and elsewhere. If you have a short answer to that, because I think that's a longer question, but
is that
a good?
Quite
right?
agree. Yeah, no,
Okay,
I think there is a lot. You know, I mean, that's what Harmeet Dillon is up to.
Right. Yes. Exactly.
Is trying to go to court. I mean, they're hard cases to prove because these universities are really good at cheating. You know,
well, yeah,
their true intent with lots of words, and so are corporations now too. But you know what it does.
I bet there's email chains and I'll bet there's all kinds of bad documentary evidence. A lot of it may be being destroyed right now. Wouldn't surprise me at all, but I'll bet there's lots of documentary evidence that can be found. And oh boy, would that be fun.
Okay, so you guys are sorry, but this is my second foray into nonsensicalness. But I don't even know if it's still a law. That I think it was called the UNRRA law, and it allowed you if I'll oversimplify. If a bar had a ladies only night, you could go and sue, and you could get personal damages. Now, you didn't have to be harmed by it. You just had to point it out. You could go there, and they had to pay you like $2,000 or $6,000 if. And so they stopped doing those kinds of ladies' nights. And if you could prove that somebody was discriminating, a business was discriminating on the basis of sex or race. Even against whites, as I recall, but I wasn't even living in California at the time, so I'm going to defer to you guys.
I mean, come on, Lucretia would never show up at a ladies' night, only night. Anyway, why do you even know what happened there? I mean, come on.
Full of women?
I know, that's what I'm saying. How do you even know this ever went on? Unless it was lady only nights with guns, maybe then.
No, I mean,
like a swap
I'd go
meet
with
kind
Ammo
of thing.
Girl. I'd go with Ammo Girl, but that's about it. But we'd want men there. Nobody wants to go to a bar that there aren't any men.
Exactly.
Right?
So why would you even want to go?
Exactly.
Okay. So, I think we've fully exhausted Steve's sympathies for whining millennials.
Cheapers.
So, readers, listeners, the fourth topic we were going to discuss, that's what triggered the fight I was referring to earlier between Lucretia and Steve. We were fighting over what should be the fourth topic to close out this show. But before we turn to one, I want to give Lucretia the chance to respond to her. You may not realize this, but she finally is at the center of a conspiracy theory herself.
This is news.
It's about damn time.
This is real news. People.
I know. Can I set this out? Because I did not know this myself. But apparently one of the highest.
Tonight,
yes.
3 people have already texted me about it.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes.
Well, we're going to address this, and hopefully maybe Lucretia herself will clip this out and put this on X and other various places where these conspiracy theories are stewed and spun around, because she's at the center of them. Ladies and gentlemen,
how funny!
Apparently,
so Candace Owens.
Do you want to go ahead? Go ahead, Lucretia.
You can give the generic conversation.
No, because for once I'm a believer. I believe everything that she's saying. I want to know. So Candace Owens, who seems to just exist and specialize in conspiracy theories, claims that the U.S. military has an intelligence group that is learning how to infiltrate Christian groups, and it is based at Lucretia's house. Basically, at Lucretia's house is the center. This is apparently. I was reading the tweet that she put up, and it said that the military intelligence group that is investigating and infiltrating Christian groups is located at this fort at the military intelligence school where Lucretia is based. Right? This is too exquisite. This is too exquisite. I just want to sit there and admire Candace Owens for finally putting all the pieces of the puzzle together, and Lucretia's act. I think Steve and I have been infiltrated by this very clever
Right.
intelligence scheme by the military. So, Lucretia, tell us what this is all about and how are we supposed to disprove conspiracy theories?
This one I think is a little bit easier. Let me give you the just one sentence that someone who is a big fan of Candace Owens, I can't watch her, so I have to go by what they said, but there's all of this ratioing back and forth. Anyway, Candace Owens, reported that Fort Huachuca in Arizona could potentially be an intelligence base providing military courses to soldiers. I am reading it verbatim, folks, with the objective of teaching them how to infiltrate Christian groups and organizations through covert psychological operations to deceive and it potentially overthrow them. There is something very sinister taking place, and we can all feel it. Okay, guys. So what I put back after a few insults and that sort of thing, Fort Huachuca is in fact home to something known as USACO, U.S. Army Intelligence Center of Excellence. Every military intelligence soldier and officer goes through training at this base at least twice, usually many, many more times. All of the big brass, short of what's in the Pentagon, in military intelligence, are located at Fort Huachuca. But okay, it is the military intelligence base. It's not a secret. It's not dark and sinister. Yes, they do. In fact, they teach counterintelligence. They teach psyops. Guess what? So does Lucretia's academic program. We teach.
See,
psyops.
as Donald Trump would say, I knew it. See, I knew it.
I knew it. However,
I knew it.
but I
See,
will tell
see,
you,
I was right.
half a dozen of the senior commanders at USACO go to church with me. They're not infiltrating.
How do we know they're not
anything.
practicing
I
their
know,
while?
that just Candace will just say that's
Yeah.
proof that it's
Yeah.
okay.
Oh my God. It's just, well, and the only reason I came upon this, I'd never followed Candace Owens, but I turn on X just to check and see kind of what's going on. Trending Fort Huachuca. Oh my God, what's happening at Fort Huachuca? You know, sometimes we have, disasters of different kinds and so on. And so I click on it and it's just like thousands of posts about how Erica Trump,
Erica,
Kirk.
right.
Sorry,
Kirk.
I'm looking at Trump on my screen. And what was his name? The chief of security for Charlie Kirk. Some guy goes by Mitch because he had to change his name because the government's been trying to kill him for 35 years. Swear to God. Swear to God. Thinks he saw her ponytail and that other guy meeting with some Arizona something on Fort Huachuca the night before Charlie Kirk was killed. And this has become, I mean, you cannot believe how many thousands of people are buying into this nonsense. And so I am now embarrassed. I do not want a conspiracy theory hat.
Oh, Steve, we finally don't see us. I told you we shouldn't
Realize
buy
never
one.
did
Because
that.
we didn't have to.
However, that being said, I do want to point out what because we were going to talk about, we didn't get to it. The Susie Wiles interview, where in one of the things she allegedly said was that J.D. Vance was a conspiracy theorist. His answer
she
is
did.
brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. And that's the kind of conspiracy
What was his
theorist I am.
answer?
His answer was, yeah, I'm a conspiracy theorist. When those conspiracy theories right now in 6 months turn out to be absolutely true,
Yeah.
and the media just doesn't cover them, that's what a conspiracy theory is. I will wear that hat, but I will never wear the Candace Owens hat. She's just vile. I don't get it. What is the deal? Maybe you guys understand. I don't.
Steve, your thoughts. Come on, Steve. You must appreciate the deliciousness
Oh
of
my God!
Lucretia
I
being
know.
trapped by a conspiracy
My
theory. And
backyard.
I gotta say, I listened to her explanation, and I'm not convinced 1 second.
Now you see, John, I'm going to talk sotto voce here in the stage whisper that Candace Owens has gotten the drop on Lucretia. You know, it's just, well, a couple things. By the way, just a one sentence comments on the Susie Wiles thing. We can talk about.
Yeah,
a
I
long
was
time.
actually going to turn to that next.
You want it?
but
Well,
go ahead, Steve.
okay. I don't. The
Because
White House.
Lucretia has given the point of Lucretia addressing this was to issue the official denial of these
Right.
crazy people. Let's move on to the seriousness.
Well, let me just say in
the
one
Susie
sentence.
Wiles interview in Vanity Fair.
Well, all right, I'll just say this now. Well, let me do it in reverse order then. Look, I have a field theory of Candace Owens that also applies to Tucker Carlson. I think they're extreme narcissists who want the attention, and they've figured out how to keep the attention on them. I think it's that simple. I think it's too bad. I
think,
always thought.
By the way, Lucretia has just posted a picture, I think, of her receiving an award of the head Christian infiltrator.
Exactly. I have received the Medal of what the
Right.
heck was it? Something,
Well,
whatever
it's,
it was, but that is the commanding general of Fort Huachuca
Well, I'm going to post
giving
this
me
in
a
the show
medal
notes.
for my public service.
Right.
There you
Anyway,
go.
for the record, John, I've always thought Candace Owens was overrated. 10 years ago, I was telling people, I think you guys are making a mistake promoting her. I don't think she's that good. The Susie Wiles thing, I can open it this way. One of the things
By the way, I should have set the stage just to briefly mention Susie Wiles, the chief of staff to the president, gave sounds like 100 ill-advised interviews.
11
to Vanity Fair. Oh, was it 11?
I think so. But that's
hundreds
a lot
of questions. Yeah. 11 interviews. 100. Oh, I'm sorry, maybe 100 hours.
Could be.
Interviews to Vanity Fair, which also released, I thought, some really unflattering photos of not the cabinet of the White House staff. And Susie Wiles said a number of things which I don't think she's actually denied saying, just says they're all taken out of context. Things like, as Lucretia said, that J.D. Vance is a conspiracy theorist. I think said Pam Bondi has whiffed on the Epstein matter and done generally a bad job. Said President Trump has the personality of an alcoholic, and on and on. Steve, what is your take on this? This is roiling Washington, D.C. right now.
No, it's not. No, here's why I say no, it's not. Lucretia put her finger on it. Maybe not this way. It is curious to me that the White House seems to be very well prepared and quite sure-footed in their response to us, like they knew it was coming, right? I mean, you mentioned J.D. Vance saying, I believe conspiracy theories that are true. That was his opening line, which is a great opening line. The mistake here, and by the way, there seems to be no, she's not being taken to the woodshed like David Stockman in 1981. I'll come back to that in a second. And maybe a couple of those comments are in fact meant to set up some shuffling that maybe needs to happen. I'll leave that aside too. The mistake, if there is one, is thinking that you can trust the media look. I mean, I've given a speech before. Their greatest skill is ventriloquist journalism. I'll tell you a brief story. I once was taken lunch by Jason DeParley of the New York Times. This is 20 years ago now. And he was friendly and interesting and gets me talking. These guys are geniuses at getting you relaxed. That's why 60 Minutes works, by the way. That's always their genius. Mike Wallace would make you think he's your best buddy, and you relax and you'd say something damaging and they'd pull that out and make you look terrible. I know a couple funny stories of people who brought their own cameras and turned the tables on him once. Always bring your own camera to a TV interview, I say, if you think it's going to be hostile. Anyway, the point is that their highest skill of these elite media people is making you relaxed and say things that you probably shouldn't say, or they're ill-considered. Because I remember going back after lunch with Jason DeParley and going in to see Chris DeMuth, my very wise boss, says, I had this great lunch with Jason DeParley. And, he seemed really interested in, my thoughts on this and that. And Chris, gentle, even-tempered guy says, oh, no, he was out to get you. That's his special superpower. All these guys have that special superpower. So I mentioned David Stockman, and I'll end here. In 1981, David Stockman, the great budget whiz kid for Reagan, agrees to sit down with William Greider of the Atlantic Monthly, a far left-wing advocate journalist, not a reporter. And Stockman, who was only, 35 years old, really smart, but I think intellectually unstable in a lot of ways, which I explained in my Reagan book. He thought, oh, I can explain it all to Grider. I can convert him. I can bring him around. Instead, the article that came out, The Education of David Stockman, was very damaging because Stockman got relaxed and blurted out a lot of stupid things. And did Susie Wiles do that? Maybe. She seems wilier than that. Haha. But maybe not. One straw in the wind. I said I was done, but I'm not. One straw in the wind is about 3 weeks ago, a very harsh article in the New York Post about Kash Patel by Carol Markowitz. Carol Markowitz is a very pro-Trump columnist at the New York Post. And I thought, that's interesting. Is this really Carol Markowitz doing her own original reporting? Maybe. But I wonder if it's a planted story. That's one way you start turning the tables on somebody. You know this, John. This is the way you turn the tables on Washington, is you plant stories about people that you want to remove or pressure.
You make it sound like I know about such things. No, I would never participate in such underhanded tactics.
Okay, go ahead.
Not a different take, another take, I guess, is a better way to put it. And I think that, let me give you my anecdote. Many years ago, in California, I was interviewed by a reporter about the term limits that were being discussed at the time. And I said, I think term limits are a bad idea. And I went through all of the reasons why I thought term limits were a bad idea. And, by the way, every reason I gave has turned out to be true in California, just so you know. But we won't go into that now. But I said, I understand why it is that voters are clamoring for term limits. In many ways, their legislators don't listen to them. They deserve, the disgust that the voters show for them sometimes. Headline, front page. Legislators deserve disgust.
Yeah.
That was such a tiny thing I said out of so many other things. Okay, that everybody knows how that works. But I guess what I'm saying is I was careful and I still let myself say something dumb like that. The worst part about the story on Susie Wiles wasn't just taking things out of context. It was the tone of the whole thing. It was look at the title of it, Power and Peril. Immediately, this is going to be something nasty. And all the way through, there's all this innuendo and insinuation, none of it having any kind of evidence to back it up. And the worst thing of all, this is, and it makes me so angry that students will fail a paper if they try to do this to me. A lot of people say that. Many people say that. Critics say that. These kind of, many people believe that. Those drive me crazy because they are Weasley straw man arguments. You don't have any proof that anybody ever said that. And if you do, I want to see it. I don't even care about footnotes, but I want to see proof if you put that stupid stuff. Reporters do it all the time. Critics argue that. So what?
Oh, right. Yeah.
So anyway, that's not that I disagreed with anything either of you said, but it's worse in some ways because it's not just taking things out of context or tricking somebody into saying something that they shouldn't, but it's the framing of it to, sorry for the phrase, force the narrative that is so insidious in my opinion.
Yeah.
So, okay, I guess I have to do Babylon then, is what you're telling me, Steve.
Yes. Well,
Babylon.
Yeah, that wraps up the show, and Babylon B headlines, Lucretia.
Okay, I'll make it quick. We never talked about, and I didn't even remember to tell you guys, this was really my big my big thing this week, which is that I don't think what happened in Australia should be considered just a result of anti-Semitism. I want to make the point over and over and over. They don't shut down Christmas markets because of anti-Semitism. It is Islam. It is the evil of Islam. But okay, next time I won't, that's not fair. But groundbreaking new study finds Islamophobia may be partially caused by Muslims killing people all the time. And then this one's not funny because I read a story in the New York Post this morning about a man who shot somebody who attacked him, a peaceful guy, and they couldn't get him for because of self-defense, but they got him for not having guns that he didn't license, and he's going to go to jail, some old guy. Australian man who wrestled gun away from terrorists, charged with unlawful firearm possession.
That's
It's
yeah.
not funny. What I heard them
Uh,
say that
yeah.
the announcement originally was this man, when he comes out of his coma, will be criminally charged. Really?
I actually don't understand. I saw the video and he was quite heroic, but then he didn't shoot the guy.
Yeah.
He
Well,
wrestled
Put
the
his
gun away, had
he
it
stole the
pointed
gun
at
and
him.
put it down, and he
Yeah,
got
I
shot
don't
by
understand.
police.
Yeah, I don't understand why
right.
he didn't shoot the two killers.
Well, he might
the-
not. I mean, there's several reasons for that. He might not have known how to use a gun, in which case you don't want to improvise on the moment. But there's also possible that he knew that he would be legally vulnerable if he did. I think Lucretia raises. Okay,
yeah.
they're insane
it's
down
awful.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's insane.
You probably heard today that the House, without the help of four slimy
Yeah.
Republicans, passed the ban on mutilating children. Democrats blast Republicans for trying to put hardworking genital mutilators out of work. Sorry.
Yeah. Take the gaming ones, though.
Tragic. Mandani's auntie slightly uncomfortable at supermarket after Australian terror attack.
Yeah.
Uh, to halt violence against Jews, Australia bans Hanukkah.
Yeah, that's also not
Yeah, I know,
inaccurate.
not
Yep.
funny. This one, media reports mass shooting in Australia. Fake news. Media reports mass shooting in Australia, but that's impossible because guns are illegal there. And finally, for you, Steve, because we almost made it through without this. So just for you, struggling Chiefs trades Taylor Swift for new it girl, Sydney Sweeney, in a bid to save the season.
Oh, you saved the show because Steve had mentioned her name all episode. We almost got through a whole episode.
I know.
We already weaned him off the Clean Air Act and almost weaned him off Sydney Sweeney.
But you mentioned
No,
it,
you're
so
never
good.
going to
Yep.
wean him off Sydney Sweeney. Never.
So let's close out. Always drink your whiskey neat, buy more books. And Steve, what is the latest AI outrage you have for us?
I don't have an AI. I have a brief one-sentence paraphrase of Henry Adams that's very topical, and it speaks for itself. And it runs as follows. You may know the original Henry Adams quote when I say it. The progression of Minnesota Democrats from Hubert Humphrey and Walter Mondale to Ilhan Omar and Tim Walz single-handedly refutes the theory of evolution. He said that about Henry Adams said that about the progression of presidents from Washington to Grant, which was wrong about Grant, but still, it's funny.
But you
So,
get the point.
People
yeah.
people have since said that about the Adams family.
I know. Well, yeah, that's right. We could someday maybe,
And
but
so
probably
when
not.
AOC becomes president,
No, that's not happening.
Well, with that, everybody,
Yeah,
it's been
right.
great to be with you, and we'll see you next week in our next special Christmas special episode of the Three Whiskey Happy Hour. Bye, everybody.
everyone.
Let me stop the recording.